Welcome back to the Celtics Nation Rise podcast. I'm your host, Griffin Aldridge. Alongside me, we have Seamus and Andrew. We have a very special guest here today. We have AJ Burton, other known as Coach AJ. And today is a different style. We're kind of going to give you some. So, really quick, do you want to introduce yourself for everyone?
Yeah. As Griffin said, I go by Coach AJ. It's just easier for me. Quinny, you obviously know me very well because I've coached Quinny on the men's basketball team at Southern Maine Community College. But I wear multiple hats at that school itself. Not only do I coach our men's basketball team, I also teach sport management classes, which I've been fortunate enough to have Griffin in both my classes this year, which has been thrilled to have every single week chatting with him. And then also I work as an academic advisor too. So again, working at a small college, you learn very quickly that you have to adapt and evolve and wear many of hats. So super thrilled where I am. I'm coming up to the end of my 9th year, which is hard to believe being originally from Michigan, but super excited to be on the show.
Perfect. So basically what we're going to do is we have some questions, obviously, because like you said, Coach, we got Andrew, who is a player. So Seamus, you want to get into kind of the first question we have for you guys, just to kind of start off?
Well, of course. I mean, you guys both have been within the college basketball experience, and we all know college basketball can vary in that level of experience when you look at all the different levels in which people come from. I mean, we're looking at March Madness right now. That is the top of the top, the cream of the crop of basketball, college basketball, in which we're talking about. But in terms of the entirety of college basketball, at any level, and specifically the level you guys have either played or coached at, what makes college basketball so special?
Quinny, why don't you lead off there?
I'll take it away. Yeah. So for me, college basketball is so special because one, it just gave me another opportunity to play at the next level, and continue my basketball career. But it's the competitiveness and the ability to play against top players. That's what I like, and being able to compete day in and day out. I also enjoy being part of a team that we practice every day. We're close together. It's different from high school. It's a big jump from high school to college where you're together all the time. You're going to dinner all the time at college. You're spending time after practice together. You're just always together, and there's that camaraderie and togetherness that you really gain from playing college basketball that you don't get in other areas.
I love that.
Yeah, I would say too, for my experience, why I love the college ranks so much is that, I was fortunate enough after high school for me, I had the ability to go on and play college basketball. Played 2 years at a community college, and then was fortunate enough to move on to an NAI school just outside of Detroit, Michigan, to finish my playing career there. So for me, my biggest goals and aspirations is getting to give these young men like Quinny, who I was able to coach, and the other young men that have come through, just the experience that I was able to have. I was very fortunate during my time that I'm one of the lucky ones to say, hey, I won a national championship as a player. And then to finally, later on in my basketball career, to be able to provide that same type of feel and experience back in 2022 when we won the national championship. But ultimately, in the end, like Quinny, this best. We talk about this a lot in our basketball program. It's the relationships that we build. The ability that every day, and again, I'm going to use Quinny as an example. I watched him come in as a freshman in the fall of 2022. He has not seen it or probably have felt it, but being able to watch his growth, not just as a basketball player, but just even as just a human being in general, it's one of the coolest experiences that I could ever ask for. And one thing too, on top of that, with the relationship piece, and in the basketball world, is it doesn't matter. College basketball is college basketball. You are in this small window of percentage. I think it's a little over 3% of high school athletes, especially in basketball, move on to play collegiate basketball. So to be a part of that prestigious level, it's a super incredible experience overall. So for me, it doesn't matter what level it is. Obviously, the cream of the crop is that Division I model, but where we are too, and Quinny, you could attest this, we really try to take, that Division I experience, which I've had a little bit of in my coaching career. Matt Richards, who I work alongside with, has some Division I experience. we try to take those things that we've learned and apply it to Quinny and the other players that have come before us to kind of give them that, hey, doesn't matter what level you're at, we're going to treat this like it's Division I, even though we're not quote unquote a Division I institution.
Yeah, and to comment on that, that's exactly how I feel. The level of intensity and professionalism that you get, no matter what level you're at, is really something cool to be a part of. And we all play basketball because we love it and we care so much about it, and that shows when we're on the court, when we're working together, when we're scouting. Coach H is a great scout report, best in the business. But that it all comes out during that, and we all want that professionalism, that intensity, that hardworking opportunity that college basketball provides.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say, I was going to ask you a different question, but you already mentioned it right here. You got the championship. So my next question kind of brings me, got the picture right there. But my next question kind of brings me to this. What was that experience for you? I kind of want to hear the whole thing about that, kind of winning it all.
So it's funny. You look back, I see that photo all the time, and there's still moments, even to when I look at the banner in the gym, I'm just like, we really did that. Like sometimes it's like a surreal feeling. One of our assistant coaches, Ian Regan, played on that championship team. And him and I, all the time when we have our starting lineup, like we do the light show, all that, like there's a moment we will look back, and at that moment, the spotlight is on that banner. So it's kind of always like a super surreal feeling to kind of look back at that. But leading into that tournament, you guys that are seeing it right now, when it comes to college basketball, including the NBA with the Celtics, it's when you are playing at your best or you're peaking as a team, that is when you're most dangerous. So in that 2022 stretch, we had a great regular season. Everything was kind of clicking at that point. And then when we got to the tournament, and it was a 5-game stretch where we played the best slate of SMCC basketball you could ask for. From just the preparation side of things, from like me preparing the guys on Scout Report. Like Quinny said about the Scout Report standpoints, like it ain't no like easy peasy kind of like, hey, here's some small tidbits. Like, no, it's a full in-depth Scout Report. It's like our goal is we want to find the teams like tendencies. What do they do very often? How can we eliminate those? Where can we expose maybe the individual or the team aspect? So leaning into that national tournament after we won our conference championship, a lot of people said like, hey, you guys play like the way you do, you guys can make some noise down in Virginia. And we had a great first round matchup in our favor. We were able to get a whole week of preparation for that. We got by them. And then at that point, once you get to the Final Four, it's kind of all gravy at that point. It's essentially who can make the least amount of mistakes, who can turn over. I mean, we had less than a 24-hour turnaround from our quarterfinal game into our semifinals. We executed a game plan to a T, led to another semifinal win, which was the #1 overall seed in the tournament. And we were the 5 seed going into that national tournament field. Then, again, a less than a 24-hour turnaround, we had to do it again in our national championship game. And that was just kind of the thing at that stage. It was just more of like, hey, the other team is just as tired as you are. It's been a grind of a week. It all just comes down to who's going to execute, who's going to make the least amount of mistakes. And then when adversity hits, who can collectively still stay together during those moments. And we experienced all those things in that championship game. It was probably, I want to say like, I would say more on the humble side of things. Like I felt very confident going into that championship game. At that stage, a lot of our guys did not know what to experience. I was the only guy that ever experienced like, hey guys, when you're in a championship game, like I've been here as a player. Here's what I can tell you from the preparation side, how to get yourself ready, how to keep your mind right, not to overthink things, and just go out there and play and leave it all out there. It led to us just, in the end with about 5-ish minutes to go, it started perking my mind. You could see the guys on the bench being like, hey, we're about to do this. And it led to us executing at the end, making free throws. And the wild thing about this story is that, we called our last time out with 1:40 to go. And as you can see, we'll probably talk a bit about the Celtics. Joe Mazzulla in his early days, he's the guy that would take timeouts home with him. Well, we took all of our timeouts that we could. So for the guys to rally around in that last timeout to be like, hey, we have no timeouts. We've got to do what we're supposed to do here in this moment and just compete, leave it all out there, end up leading to us winning our first ever national championship. So it's still a surreal feeling knowing that we were able to accomplish that. But like I said earlier, like the biggest biggest thing for me was just watching the guys, the experience of seeing them celebrate, knowing that, hey, I got to experience it, but getting to watch it from just a perspective as a coach was one of the coolest feelings in the world. And that group is still pretty tight knit, still talk to each other very often. We still have a group chat that still goes on. And what's great about them is those guys are all still so involved, not just like kind of updating us on what's going on in their life, but they're also updating us too, just like, hey, we're seeing these things here. You know, we had some struggles this year. They were throwing some insights. Like Quinn knows us. We had a couple of our former players come back to a practice and say, hey, guys, you're not doing this right. Here's what you got to do. Like the proof's in the pudding. Like look at the banner. We have that to show it. But going back to what you were saying, Griffin, it's just a surreal feeling. You know, long nights of preparation on my end. But again, I knew what I was supposed to do, what my role was to help put our guys in successful positions throughout that entire week.
That's
I have a quick question to kind of go off of that. So obviously we won because I was part of it. So I wasn't part of the national championship team, but I came the year after, right? And the Celtics are kind of going through this right now as well, where you win a national championship, you win a championship. Now you got teams coming at you with their best effort. And so how did that go for us, or how would you feel about that question?
Yeah, so, you know, we had some returners come back from that championship team. And when we had our first team meeting, and Quinny, this was before you even arrived, and the other freshmen that came in, like, you know, Luke Briggs, Kobe Dillingham, Andrew St. Hilaire, Randy Vasquez, and some other guys, you know, I said to our returners coming back, I said, look, I was a junior when we won our national championship as a player. And coming back, you just think like, oh, we're just gonna do this again. Like this is so easy. Like it's not that easy. You know, Phil Jackson, longtime head coach, used this quote. I use it to the guys in this group. I said, hey, a successful act is only acknowledged at the moment. You got to go do it again now. So I said to him, like, there could be some disappointment if you guys think it's just going to be handed back to you. And Quinny, you remember that first year, we had some ups and downs, and we hit, I wouldn't say rock bottom, but we lost four out of 6 games at the end of the season. Felt like the wheels were falling off, but it just felt like there was that moment you guys had that epiphany in the locker room with a former player, and that kind of made things click again, and it led to us winning the conference championship. You know, fortunately, we came up short once we got to the national tournament again to defend our title. But seeing that group of guys, you know, collectively come together and had that moment of like, okay, it's not going to be handed to us. We got to earn our right to get back there. Again, was another nice thing to see, and the growth that you guys showed throughout that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. And just one more thing as well. I talked about in the previous podcast about when you have a winning culture and you start winning, there's an expectation that is set for you. And day in and day out, you got to go reach that and strive for that, you know? So being part of it, I couldn't have asked for anything better, because it's fun to be a part of something when you're chasing something, when you have an expectation that you got to reach, and it just makes you become a better player, a better person in and out. And hopefully the Celtics notice that and are using that to advantage.
I love that. I love that. I want to pull that up really quick again just to show it off. But Seamus, you had a question. We'll get into Celtics talk later too. I know you wanted to say some stuff kind of about the rivalry. So
ultimately, well, first I want to get into this is the thing. Both of you guys are talking about your experience in such a fruitful way for people to see, because a lot of people they look at, you know, the D3 level or really the community college level, and they look at schools like that and they don't really think too much. You know, I'm from Southern Illinois. We have one here, Southwestern Illinois College, SWIC, and they have a basketball program, and a lot of people don't even know around our area that they play basketball there at SWIC. But I love how you guys are actually talking about your guys' program from the standpoint of you guys build standards, you're building culture there. It doesn't matter, like you said, which level you're at or what level you're at, because you're still trying to attain a goal. And I've always thought basketball, really, there are a lot of parallels within the game of basketball and really just the whole process of the game of basketball. It's not just what's seen on court, it's also what's behind the scenes. There are a lot of parallels within the whole process of basketball and winning in basketball that go hand in hand with how people achieve success in life after basketball, whether it's high school, whether it's college, and it goes on and so on and so forth. in the future. And that's what I just love to hear out of both of you guys, the way you guys attack your craft, attack the process, and really build standards no matter what level it is. And I think there's a lot of insight to what you guys are saying about the level of basketball, that community college level of basketball that you guys are at. And that just kind of brings me a question for you coaches. A day in the life, you kind of talked about this a little bit already, but a typical day in the life for you during the regular season, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I look at our season in like different parts. The coach I played for, the analogy he used was just so great. I wish I could use it more. Is like, think of like you go to like a movie theater play. You have act one, and then there's an intermission. Then you have act two, and then there's another intermission, and you have act three. So like, in our phase that I look at, like act one is kind of like your preseason. That kind of leads into kind of like, opening start of practice. Act two is kind of like once you get into like the thick of the season. Act three would be kind of like the postseason stuff. But for me on a daily aspect, it's more of like, hey, what can I do to make sure our guys can leave knowing that, hey, we got better today. Whether it's through like a simple individual workout session, a small group workout session, or in practice, the ultimate goal every day is, hey, what can we do to make sure we leave the gym knowing we got better as a group? And a lot of it too is we have a great coaching staff. We always talk amongst each other a lot, whether it's, in the office, on the court, or even just in a simple group chat, kind of leading into kind of what we need to do day to day to make sure we got things right. The program is set in stone. The consistency is always there. So for me, like during the middle of the season, for example, is, typically we play on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So more of it at the start of the week is like, okay, what is the outlook of who do we have this week? Okay, we play Wednesday against Great Bay Community College. And then on Saturday, we got Central Maine Community College, for example. It's more making sure the coaching staff's in line of like, okay, who's got what scout report? Okay, I got the scout report for Great Bay. The game's on Wednesday. I got to make sure that starting Monday, I've done all my preparation on that and to get the guys starting to prepare for what they're going to see against Great Bay. And then on Tuesday, it's the same thing, a little bit more in depth. Might be some film clips that we'll show, whether it's like things that we'll see on the defensive end or the offensive end, or it could even be a mix of both. And then obviously it leads into kind of like the big walkthrough stuff of like, hey, here's some of their sets that you're going to see. Here's some of their baseline out of bounds you're going to see. We always want to make sure that we're prepared for those so we're not giving up easy baskets there. Kind of in a way, too, I look at it is when we're playing these games, Quinn knows this phrase very often. We like to play chess, not checkers. So we're trying to make it more of like, hey, it's a basketball game, but we're going to see like, hey, we're going to take things away. Can you make the adjustments like you do in a game of chess to see if you can just counter what we're trying to do? And they're trying to do the same thing to us too on the other end. So it's always trying to make sure you're always 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 steps ahead of the other team. So a lot of the day-to-day preparation on that end is just more of like, what can I do to help our guys be better? But also what can I do to help our guys be prepared for the moment to execute on game day for us to come out with that win.
Yeah, I love that. I kind of want to ask this too, Andrew, what's kind of a day in the life for you as a player?
Yeah, I mean, as a player, I always have class, so I got to, go to class. And then during that, I try to fit in a time to get shots up, whether I use the shooting machine or I just, work on my handle. That's kind of important for me so that I can go into practice feeling prepared. And then once I get to practice, it's all mental. It's all locked in. It's how can I impact my teammates in the right way? How can I be positive? How can I show up with great effort? And then how can I just compete like it's a regular game? I mean, that's important that you make the practices harder than the games. And that way the games are kind of easier and you're prepared for it, So it's always, I think preparation is such a good word, and all the greats use it. It's always finding ways where you can prepare yourself just a little better, so you have that little edge when it comes to game time.
Yeah,
hey, Quinny, real quick too, Quinny, I'm surprised you didn't mention about the second part of the season that I think secretly you guys all love and cherish the most.
Yes.
We bring you guys back. There's a stretch that we bring them back during Christmas break, and class isn't in session. They get about a 10-day hiatus where they can go back home, be with family, be with friends. Then we bring them back to get ready for the second semester part of the season. But there's like a 2.5 week stretch where these guys don't have class or anything. So how I always phrase the guys like, hey, you want to know what it is to be like a pro hooper? This is the time frame, because literally you have no class, you have no obligations there. It's just you can go to the gym whenever you want to get better. So, Quinny, I was waiting for you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah,
but
I didn't even think about it.
Again, he's an academic All-American, so you can see where his priorities are, which is awesome to hear. But yeah, there is the joy for these guys too, that they get about a 2-week stretch where no classes are in session. They could just act like they're pro hoopers day in and day out for that time.
Yeah, just go back, play some video games, get my mind right, and then come back on the court and do it all over again. It's a fun process.
I love that. I love that. So kind of last question, we'll move into this year's tournament and everything. But you guys kind of already mentioned it. But obviously SMCC plays at a D3 level. If you guys correct me on that, like kind of competition wise. But what is kind of that experience and overall competition just playing at that level? You guys could both answer it. I'm curious to know.
Quinny, you can go ahead and go first, just from a player perspective.
Yeah, as a player perspective, it's extremely competitive. Night in, night out, you have to give it your all. It's not a cakewalk. These guys, like Coach A talked about, they're scouting. They recruit. They have good players. So it's always, a lot of times it's a battle. I mean, we played against this kid Jalen Calvin from Vermont State, Randolph. My second year in the playoffs, he had a near quadruple double against us. He's this lefty shooter, crazy athletic, twitchy. So you have these guys, that are extremely talented, extremely gifted, and sometimes they just end up at, whether it's a community college or whatever level they're playing at, they just kind of fall in there, and it's fun to play against them. But there's always at least one guy that you're like, damn, we gotta really worry about him. We gotta make sure we contain him and do our part. But I think that the competitiveness is, you can't understate it, and just because it's that community college D3 level, it's always a tough battle day in and day out.
Yeah, unfortunately, Quinny, you mentioning the name Jalen Calvin. The listeners, you're probably not familiar with this guy, but you can just Google him. You should probably find a highlight tape of him at Vermont State Randolph.
Recommended. I'd say you should.
That young man gave me nightmares for the last 2 or 3 years when he was playing there, because no matter how I felt I could prepare for him, I felt like he was just always a simple way to counter everything we were trying to do. And Quinny's right. He did some games where you're just like, wow, like what? There's nothing you can do against them. But going back to what you were saying, Griffin, is the one thing I would say is, again, what's unique about our community college is that, we're not affiliated with the NJCAA. So we're a part of what's called the USCAA, which is the United States Collegiate Athletic Association. So we're kind of in a blend with some like 2-year schools, but then all the rest of them are going to be 4-year schools. So what's unique about that is we do have the ability to where we can play some NCAA Division III schools. I think we played 4 this past year, Quinny, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
But typically we play about two to 3 in the regular season, and then we'll probably maybe play 2 of them in like a scrimmage before the season gets started. So, the one thing I notice is like, when we get into the thick of the season and we're playing against some of these 4-year schools, is that, we do still have that community college named ourselves. So the disadvantage we have is that, we're mostly having freshmen, sophomores, like Quinny, for example, you could play more than 2 years at our community college with our governing body we're in. So like, it's very rare that we have juniors or maybe seniors on our team. We have 18, 19-year-old young men going up sometimes against grown men that are 21, 22, could be 23 years old. So there is that little bit of that discrepancy standpoint playing against that kind of style. You might think like, okay, like, if you look at the Celtics, for example, like when Tatum first came in the league, he was 18 years old. You're like, okay, wow, like, he can handle his own stuff. But you have to remember, he's having those moments when he struggles because he's playing against grown men. A prime example we'll talk a little bit about here is, Maine's own Cooper Flag. When he first started at Duke, there was a lot of people being like, oh man, is this guy really is he really that guy? Like, he doesn't seem to be it. He's struggling, all this stuff. But like, I had to kind of always say that when the conversation got brought up. It's like, yeah, remember it. He's still 17 years old playing against 21, 22, 23-year-old men. So there's that little discrepancy there. So going back to kind of like what Quinny has kind of talked about, I talked about, that's why that preparation thing is so huge. So we can put our young men in positions to be successful, even though, there's a little bit of a different time frame standpoint, who they're going up against day in and day out.
And it's cool to say this because, obviously I'm not at the Cooper Flag level of play, but I can still relate to him because when my freshman year, I came on the team and I'm trying to understand the offense and how it runs. And, it's fast paced. My mind's moving. We use a phrase, moving 1,000 miles a minute, like I don't know what I'm doing, it can be overwhelming at times, and when you're that age, when you're younger, and then you translate it on the court against older guys. And we're going to talk about it too, but March Madness right now, you can see that a lot of teams that have older guys with experience are making deeper runs in the tournament because they understand what it takes. So it definitely is. It's interesting perspective.
I just kind of wanted to say too, I've seen a lot of, obviously, you guys play because I've been doing a lot of broadcasting, and I want to say sometimes it could be a lot older than 20 too. I saw someone that was a lot older. But then also, like, definitely, I swear with Calvin, he was insane. Just every time he shot a three, it was crazy. But really quick, I kind of want to get into the NCAA and kind of what we're approaching on this year and kind of that whole aspect. So, first of all, what are your guys' initial thoughts and who do you guys think is going to win? Seamus, we can start off with you.
Well, first of all, Griffin, I don't know if you just heard outside of my window, but there was just a massive truck that rolled by. And so I was like, wait, what are you asking me? So, so right now, in terms of the tournament, looking at the tournament now, I will say my Final Four, I don't know about you guys, but it's already done. I still have three. I will say, a couple teams are still in there, but I had St. John's in the Final Four. I always have that one Northeastern team that I always believe in. Like Rhode Island will be a 7 seed, and I'll just go, Rhode Island, I'm feeling a run out of Rhode Island, and it just never happens. But ultimately, this March Madness run, I did have St. John's in the Final Four. I did have Auburn in the Final Four as well. That's still going well for me. I have Duke out there. Duke looks great so far. Cooper Flag. I love what's being talked about with Cooper Flag in here in terms of the aspects of him being younger. I still can't believe he's 10 days away from being born in 2007. It's like that 2007. That I'm thinking people born in 2007. I'm like they're like 10 years old. It's like nope. We have Cooper Flag. He's out there playing college basketball now. And at the beginning, that's really how I will say many players at Duke, they've had that same road before. They haven't looked dominant right away, and they just kind of they really ramp it up throughout the season. The development, of course, you guys have outlined, very important, just in age and experience alone. But I have Duke out there. They are definitely one of the younger teams, but they're one of the more talented teams. A lot of NBA talent laced on Duke. But the other Final Four team, in which I have coming out of I don't know which region it is, or the region over in the fourth quadrant, right? I have Tennessee. I have Tennessee coming out of that region. I know a lot of people believe in Houston. That's probably one of the older squads you guys are talking about out there. Houston, always a very experienced team, very nitty gritty team, but I do have Tennessee coming out of that bracket. And after the game against UCLA, I would feel pretty confident about that. I have Auburn winning the whole thing over Tennessee. I'm a believer of the SEC right now. I'll say I'll just the money talks. SEC, they throw out a bunch of money, a lot of talented players both in football and basketball. You're going to have some of the best players at those universities, and I think that's going to show during the tournament. And I have Auburn over Tennessee. St. John's, they're already out. They're gone. They're my one Northeastern squad that I can't get off them. I always got to have one Northeastern squad going on a run. Same thing with the Missouri Valley. It's like, oh, Drake, I see Drake out there. It's like, oh, can we go on a run with Drake from the Missouri Valley? But always gets me caught up every year. But some of the forming blue bloods, specifically within the SEC, not technically blue bloods, not the Kansas, Kentuckies, the North Carolinas, the Dukes of the world, other than Duke, sure. But I have Auburn and Tennessee meeting in the final, and I have Auburn beating Tennessee in the final. But I don't know what you guys have. What do you have, Coach?
So luckily for me, I kind of took the I'm looking kind of the bracket I kind of put together is I got all Final Four teams still in the mix. I did something that was kind of maybe a little bit of a cop out kind of a way, but I think these are the four best teams right now. Is I have all the 1 seeds in the Final Four this year. I don't think that's happened since I think it's like 2008, somewhere around. It's been a long time since the 4 1 seeds have made all the Final Four, and it's still potential that could happen. I think the one thing too that you're seeing, and I know a lot of times when you get in this tournament play, especially at the NCAA tournament, is one, it's going to come down to guard play. Obviously, as you can see, a lot of teams that are still remaining have incredible guard play from top to bottom. But the second thing too, that's kind of a separator too, is like, hey, how many pros do you have on your team? You know, you look at Duke, for example. We've been talking about them a lot. Like Duke has 3 freshmen. All 3 freshmen they're easily top 10 picks. I mean, Cooper is easily the number 1 pick, but then you got the other 2 young freshmen on our team that arguably are going to probably go in the draft and will probably be top 10 players. Obviously with Houston, Michigan State, the thing in Texas Tech and Tennessee, those 4 teams, what those guys all have is that they're just gritty. They're teams that are just willing to grind game in and game out. I'm a Michigan State guy. I mean, obviously born and raised in Michigan. You grow to love either Michigan or Michigan State. I chose the good side, being Michigan State. Sorry to all Michigan fans that are listening out there on this.
I'm an Ohio State guy. That's music to my ears. I'm like, I don't like Michigan State either, but I'm just saying it's better than that team up north. I'm just saying.
All I'm saying is when I meet people that are Ohio State fans, we do have one thing in common. It's just our dislike towards the University of Michigan.
Yes.
But with State, the thing is about them, the grit, the grind that they have, they're willing to just for 40 minutes, it's a dogfight for them. And that's why I like a lot about the Tennessee team, Houston, like you, Seamus, having them in the championship game, like it wouldn't shock me because, defense does win championships. But they are just so stifling at that defensive end to where like, hey, they can have lapses on the offensive end. If it's a low scoring game, the opposing team's in trouble because they know like, hey, if we got to get stops like this team's doing, we can't compete with them because they just beat you up, both inside and out. I have Duke winning it all, and I have them meeting Florida in the championship game. It was painful for me to say having Michigan State get to Elite Eight would be awesome. I think Auburn is a juggernaut, but I just think Florida and Duke right now are just one level just higher than Auburn is right now at the moment. Obviously, we talk about Duke with those pros, but Florida's got some studs too. Their point guard, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now.
Walt Clayton.
Clayton. I mean, he's incredible right now. I mean, what he did at the end of the game against UConn, like those are separators there. Like he's a guy that can make plays for you, and that's another thing too. Like if you got a guy on your team, hey, you need to get a bucket. Florida's got that guy. We already talked about what Duke has. Alabama's point guard, Sears, he's a guy that can get you a bucket or create something for you. So I think, too, those are a lot of elements that are going to take place. So for me, Final Four still intact. I got Duke beating Florida, but I think we're in for a great set of 2 weeks of basketball left at the college level.
So I kind of want to move on to Andrew. I'm going to say this. My NCAA knowledge is non-existent. Coach AJ would tell you that as he hit me with a factor in class for sure. But yeah, Andrew, I want to hear your perspective.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that. I think I have Florida winning it all, like going against Houston. I just thought Florida with Waller Payton. Not Waller Payton, Waller Clayton. The way he was able to just create on the offensive end and give Florida, a chance and really put them on their back, I thought was impressive. But I also thought, Florida's ability to withstand UConn's offense, to withstand their championship tendencies to withstand Dan Hurley's, coaching and all that. I thought it was impressive. UConn, sure, they're an 8th seed, but they have that experience like we've talked about. They gave them a test, and Florida was able to say, get hit, face the adversity, like Coach E had talked about, and move on. And I think that is such a winning tendency and something that is so important in a team. So I like the chances of Florida finding ways to just win games. When it comes down to it, it doesn't matter the score. It matters if you come out with a win. And Florida proved that. So I think that I like that. I like that in the team.
I want to kind of add on to that. So I was rooting for UConn because I'm originally from Connecticut. But I'm going to say this. Like I said, NCAA knowledge not there. It's getting better, but it's not there. But I'm going to go Duke just because I'm rooting for Cooper, obviously. Coming from Maine, I grew up like 45 minutes from where he played, and it's crazy to me because I found something out. When we were playing football, he was probably in the gym shooting hoops, so I thought that was pretty cool. And just how close like we were, and we were in Newport when he was there, which is awesome. But ultimately, I think they're going to win. I don't know much. You kind of call me out if you wanted to call me out on kind of what the fact was. Amos and Andrew are going to be very disappointed in me, I could tell.
It was so as you guys have heard, I have Griffin in my sport management classes. So we came back from Christmas. I stumped him on a Celtic trivia question, and it pertained to more of a college basketball question, but it was more along the lines. We talked about Brad Stevens a little bit, who we'll talk about the Celtics here. Love Brad Stevens, love everything he does, from the coaching, what he's done as a general manager. I remember asking Griffin the question. I said, "Hey, where did Brad Stevens come from?" And he had no idea. He's like, "Honestly, I have no clue." I'm like,
and then you're like,
Celtics. I was very surprised you did not know where it came from. But the answer is, do you remember what the answer is?
Listen.
It's okay. It's Butler University. Not many people know about Butler, but he came from Butler.
They almost won it, and Gordon Hayward had that tough shot.
Twice. I mean, back-to-back Final Four runs for Butler.
Yeah.
I mean, that actually kind of gets me into another question for you guys here is Butler, they were a Cinderella team back then. And we've seen quite a few Cinderella teams in the tournament, but this year doesn't really feel like we have that Cinderella presence. I don't know about you guys, but Arkansas 10 seed, sure. But we don't really have that real Cinderella presence like say last year in North Carolina State. Do you guys believe that all of the new NIL aspects of college basketball will kind of put all the power at the top of college basketball and eliminate some of the Cinderella runs in the future? Is that a possibility in your guys' mind?
I think, unfortunately, I think this could be a trickle down. I mean, we actually talked about this in class today, Griffin, just about some of the trickle downs we're going to see from the NIL standpoint. And I think this is kind of the precursor to what it could lead to. I just hope it's just a one-year thing. We don't see the Cinderellas because, again, when you get to March, like there's always that one team that just makes that Cinderella run and people just get invested in. They become America's team. I mean, we saw it a couple years ago. I mean, like Oral Roberts, Florida Gulf Coast has done this. St. Peter's a couple years back made the Elite Eight run. So, I'm hoping it's just a one-year thing. But not only does the NIL thing, I think, play a part, but I think the transfer portal is also a detriment right now, too. The fact that, some of these mid-major teams or Cinderella teams have these great players, they have a great outstanding season. Well, all these higher-end schools are like, well, if you go in the portal, we'll take you. We will take you and that stuff. And I think that's kind of a one thing there. I hope I'm wrong, but I do think this is the trickle-down beginning phase of what NIL is providing.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I'd say that, like Coach talked about, the transfer portal, you have these guys that are successful in their first season, say at a mid-major, and when they transfer out, now these coaches have to recruit again, find another guy that can help them with success. But they have to learn the system again. We already talked about it. It's tough to learn the system. It takes a little while. You gotta build up until you're actually ready to play in the system, So I just think that it definitely is to the mid-majors' disadvantage. And it's slightly frustrating just because it's important, like we talked about, like part of college basketball is that ability to work hard, persevere through challenges, and come out better because of it. And you build a camaraderie, a team bond because of it. But it feels a lot more individualized now at this point, and that takes away from the sport and the benefits that come with basketball outside of just the game, you know?
Yeah, no, there's benefits. I think too. One thing to say too before we really dive into the Celtics, I think a prime example is like Derek White. If the transfer portal is not a thing, I mean, it wasn't a true thing at the time, but if Derek White doesn't transfer from that Division II school to University of Colorado, like who knows where he is now? Like, does he still make it to the league and all that stuff? And like, with this too, you have to think about the transfer portal. If this was a thing like 10, 15 plus years ago, like think of those mid-major guys that really shined. Like, would they have gone into the portal and like gone somewhere else? Like, think of like Steph Curry, Davidson's mid-major. CJ McCollum went to Lehigh. Like, you could go down a list of guys being like, man, if the transfer portal was a thing back in the day, would they stay loyal or would they be the ones being like, no, I'm gonna jump ship. I can make this money here in NIL by putting myself in the portal. So it's a kind of big what if in that standpoint.
Yeah, and I didn't see this. I think I saw this on Instagram. It's at the high school level, but Gilbert Arenas was talking about how his son, he wanted to give him more like the traditional route. He didn't want him to send him to like overseas, or he didn't want to send him like to the overtime league or anything like that, because he knew playing at that high school level, like you have a responsibility on your back. You got to help your team be successful, and you can't rely on other guys. Like you got to lead them. And so there's almost something to say about that. Like Curry going to Davidson at that mid-major level, he learned how to put a team on his back, how to lead, how to take advantage of the opportunity. So that's another thing just to think about.
Yeah, I honestly, not my question again. Seamus, what are your thoughts on that? And then we'll get into some Celtics.
Well, I love what you guys said about the transfer portal, because I look at it now and I go, well, take a place like Lipscomb, for example, right? They were in the tournament this year, a low seed. You might have a guy at Lipscomb, or a group of guys really, stay all 4 years at Lipscomb, say 10 years ago. And that fourth year team at Lipscomb, you have all these seniors, very experienced. They've been together cohesively. They know each other very well on court, in and out, and they understand the system which they've been brought up in. And that team is a team that could make a run in the NCAA tournament. That senior team, that fourth year team with all those guys. Now, that fourth year team doesn't exist. It simply doesn't exist. Those same guys who would have been brought up at Lipscomb, and say they're super ultra talented by the time they're seniors, and say maybe one of them does turn into an NBA level prospect. Well, by the fourth year, well, if he was going to the NBA, might have already been extracted by his fourth year. But regardless, is that fourth year team, you see these guys, they transfer. It would be almost like this for the journey. Instead of that fourth year team existing, you would see, oh, one guy, oh, he's transferring to Kansas State the next year. Oh, another guy, he's transferring over to Montana or wherever outside of Lipscomb. And then, oh, you have another guy transfer to Alabama. And then all of a sudden, say from there, that guy who went to Kansas State, now he's going to Kentucky for his third and fourth years, junior and senior year. So you have a lot of that going on, where in the old days of college basketball, which is now becoming the old days without NIL and the transfer portal, you wouldn't see that. You would see that fourth year team at Lipscomb come together and potentially make a run in the NCAA tournament. Now, all these players who would be together are now split off on all these different teams, and it almost becomes like this NBA free agency level of process that goes on within college for some of these top programs to get the best possible squad out there, because beforehand, there was talent on some of the lower squads on the totem pole when it comes to the hierarchy of college basketball. And now all of that talent, you see a guy, oh, he performs well in the A10. Oh, he performs well in the Ohio Valley Conference. Well, the next season, he's not going to be playing in the Ohio Valley Conference. He's not going to be playing in the A10. He might be playing in the ACC. He might be playing in the Big Ten. He might be playing in the SEC now. And I just see that kind of that transpiring on court a little bit, from the standpoint of when I look at the first round, particularly the last 2 years, I just feel like the best teams are just way better than the teams they're facing who have won some of the conference tournaments. Now, that's always really supposed to be the case, but I did think the level of competition long ago, or really not that long ago, but last decade at least, it was a little bit like this. You had guys at smaller schools, but they were close to the level of the guys here. And now it's just gone like this, in my opinion, because you're taking a lot of these guys here and you're stacking them on top of here, and that's just bringing this level down. This is bringing this level up, and that's where I kind of see 100% the transfer portal is causing the college basketball landscape to look a lot different from my mind. But that's my take on it, Griffin. I know, Griffin. I know that we mentioned here that maybe the NCAA not a priority for Griffin. You know, he's got a lot of G League stuff going on, NBA
Strictly
stuff, of course. But I will say we are entering a new era in college basketball and all that. So Griffin, great time to hop on. Just saying.
It is. It is. I'm getting my knowledge up. You know, I know a few more schools now and getting that, learning. But really quick, I wanted to ask this. Obviously, we'll get into some more talk. But Andrew, you wanted to give us the whole rundown on Al Horford and his NCAA journey. Kind of just we'll add some Celtics to it because Celtics podcast. But
yeah, well, just briefly for some of you guys that, and for some reason I didn't even know, but Al Horford did in 2006 and 2007 went back to back with Florida on national championship run. You know, so I think it just shows in who Al Horford is, you know, and what he's can bring to the table. So just a cool fact that some of you maybe people didn't know.
And we know now
Coach AJ might have more, like,
Yeah.
if you're watching that.
Hey, shout out Grand Ledge, Michigan. That's where he grew up. He's a Michigan guy.
There? Okay.
Yeah. If you guys probably remember too, like that Florida team, like that 2-year run, like they were good. It was him. They had Joakim Noah, Corey Brewer. Then they had two other guys that on their starting lineup that didn't pan out to be good pros at all. Or they're at the NBA level. They were still pros, but they didn't make it to the NBA. But it was Torian Green was their point guard, and then they had this little shooter named Chris Humphreys. I mean, that was in the heyday back in 06, 07, like Quinny said. But man, that was a fun group to watch. I saw Al Horford play in high school. If someone would have told me like, hey, that guy's gonna be soon be NBA Hall of Famer, world champion, 2-time national champion at Florida, I would have been like, hey, let's go buy a scratch off ticket right now because I like my luck there than seeing what it's gonna pan out to be. So there's a little extra feed there for Al Horford.
That's awesome. So really quick, do you guys want to say any Celtics in college kind of experience like that? Obviously, Al Horford is one of the more notable ones, but Jason Tatum playing at Duke. You had Jaylen Brown, California. I know he played in California. And obviously, we talked about Derek White. Anyone else that sticks out kind of in college or not really?
I mean, you guys probably don't remember, but unfortunately, he was a West Coast guy through and through with Peyton Pritchard at Oregon.
Yeah.
Really nice career there. He was one of those guys, unfortunately, his senior year when COVID hit, season got canceled. He was going into that senior year. You know, he was kind of geared up to help Oregon to make one more run to a Final Four because he was on the team previously that made the Final Four. I'm trying to think. Drew Holiday was a UCLA guy, but I think he was a one and done guy, I think, potentially. Trying to think who else. Obviously, Sam Hauser started at Marquette, went to Virginia. Griffin James, you want to throw out any other guys too? I might know where they went to college at.
Shireman with Creighton. I know that.
Shireman.
Yeah.
Yep.
We talked about him.
No, go ahead, Andrew. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
we
Andrew.
talked about him, and I just keep saying it. Like last night in particular, you just saw him. He's a grinder, man. Like he just has a nose for the ball. He understands the game well, and like I said, he just has that kind of leadership mentality. And at Creighton, he had that big role, and it just seems that having that big role and is really showing now with the Celtics, and he's just given the opportunity now to actually show it on the court, and it's cool to see.
Griffin, I'm not putting you on the spot here, but I'm gonna put Quinner on the spot since he brought him up. Quinny, he was a transfer portal guy. Before he went to Creighton, where was he at prior?
No clue.
Davis, you know?
I feel like,
It's a Midwest.
okay, was it, why do I want to say South Dakota State? I don't.
You are right. The Jackrabbits.
Oh,
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
I was like, I feel like I pictured him in that uniform before. I just was like, I wasn't sure. Hey, they haven't, I don't know when's the last time I don't know when the last time South Dakota State has been in the tournament, but it seems like they're there quite often. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
That's where,
I think he was on the team the last time they made it, and he was kind of that well-known figure. He was got to put himself in the portal, ended up at Creighton, and ended up having a incredible short run there as well, which obviously leads him to being for the Celtics. Obviously, he's in our backyard all the time playing for the Maine Celtics. James, good. Griff, man, I'm telling you, man.
great
Come on,
player.
man. Come to the college basketball side. You'd be
I got it.
there's a lot out there, man.
I was going to mention this too. You mentioned Peyton Pritchard's run got cut off by COVID, but I'm convinced Peyton Pritchard is a guy. If he would have had that March Madness run, I don't know if he would have been available there at 26 for the Celtics. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. He is that guy. I mean, Peyton Pritchard. If there is any tournament built for a guy like Peyton Pritchard, oh, it's the March Madness bracket. It's the March Madness bracket. I mean, definitely not great. Peyton Pritchard didn't have his moment there, but maybe great for the Celtics in time. I don't know.
And just like that, the Celtics get another steal in the draft.
Yeah. So really quick too, we'll kind of say this to kind of wrap it up after, but we got 3 greens in the background, and obviously coming from Detroit, you want to kind of get into that?
Yeah, obviously, like I said, I'm originally from Michigan, so back in the heyday when the Pistons, it's exciting times right now for the Pistons. They seem to have a nucleus figured out. They got a great coaching staff, which is exactly what Cade has needed in his young career, and he's actually surrounded by some nice veterans. And we've actually made some good picks in recent years. I think Jalen Duren starting to turn himself around into being one of the best bigs, and him and Cade are becoming a nice 1-2 punch. But for me, I always say this to Griffin. We talked about this recently. Is that I was very fortunate back in like the early 2000s. I was born just after the Bad Boys era ended and stuff. So I'm a 90s baby. So like growing up, the Pistons were kind of just mediocre. We had Grant Hill, who he's kind of known as like the next Michael Jordan, but had so many injuries. It just led to it just never worked out for him. We had Jerry Stackhouse, who was an incredible player at North Carolina. We got him. He was an all-NBA guy for 1 year. But the Pistons had to make some tough decisions, and Joe Dumars was our general manager. He had to make some trades and try to really shake things up. And, he made the 2 big trades. It started with Grant Hill, led to sending him to Orlando Magic. There's 2 guys that, I do remember coming in. No one really knew about. Chucky Atkins, which you guys are probably still like, I have no idea who Chucky Atkins is. The second name, Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace was a part of that deal. Again, 6'7", 6'8". He said he was 6'9", but let's be honest. He's not 6'9", unless he had that afro going. He was then 6'9". So we made that trade for him. That's kind of the right pieces. We then traded Jerry Stackhouse. Trade him to the Washington Wizards. A couple guys, like I can't remember who was on that deal, but there's one guy, UConn legend, Richard Rip Hamilton, was in that deal. So having those 2 guys come in on trades was kind of a nice thing there. Then Joe Dumars kind of kept rolling, kept making more free agent signings. He was able to get Chauncey Billups. I believe he came from Minnesota, I think it was. Obviously, his story, as you guys all know, what he was able to do. And then he obviously made a draft pick. And, Seamus, you talked earlier about Peyton Pritchard kind of falling into the lap of the Celtics. Pistons had the luck late first round. I think it was like 2001, 2002. We had a guy named Tayshaun Prince fall into our lap. Defensive nightmare for teams. He was kind of known as like our Kobe stopper the year we won that championship. And then, leading to that championship year, and that group was just a great grindy. They were known as like the going to work Pistons. Defense was their biggest MO. They didn't have any superstars. Actually, the fun fact about the Pistons team that won it all, they're the only NBA championship team to not have a top 75 NBA player on their roster, which is super cool to kind of look back at that time frame. But during that season, we had the right pieces. Joe Dumars made another great draft pick in Mimino Kerr. He did swing and miss. All right, let's state the obvious. He did swing and miss on Darko Milicic. We could have had anybody but LeBron, so we settled with the European guy, Darko. Again, tough for him just because it was a situation where it was just kind of like, hey, he was in a lose-lose because he was playing behind guys. But during that rookie season, Joe Dumars made one last move that really solidified this Pistons for the next 4, 5, 6 years afterwards. He traded for Rasheed Wallace. Do you guys know where Rasheed got traded from?
What? Well, to the Pistons?
Yeah, when he got to the Pistons, the year they won it.
I believe it was, well, he was traded, but he was on the Blazers, right?
Longtime Blazers.
But was he traded to the Hawks?
He was. He played one game for the Atlanta Hawks and then got traded to Detroit. And that was the missing piece that team needed. Obviously, it led to us winning a championship. It's one of the very few championships that I got to experience growing up. I say this to Griffin. I say this to all New England kids growing up is that, Griffin and Quinn, you guys have had, 27 parades in like 4 years, basically, for all the championships you guys win. So for me, like that time frame was so special, being able to watch that day in and day out, year after year. But all good things come to an end at a certain point. Back in like 07, 08, I think it was 07 or 08, we had to make a change. And we ended up trading Chauncey Billups to the Denver Nuggets for well out of his prime Allen Iverson. And that was kind of the moment we were in rebuilding mode. We then, traded Rasheed. I think he went to the Knicks before he came to the Celtics for a little time frame. Ben Wallace left in free agency. So it all kind of just led to us having to rebuild, and we were rebuilding for a long, long time. Fortunately, we got the number 1 pick a few years ago for Cade Cunningham, which was exciting. Obviously, we've swung and missed the last couple years with some of the names. Like I remember the Wemby sweepstakes. Like we had the worst record. We had the best odds to win it, and we ended up with the 5th pick. The following year, I can't remember who was the person that potentially could have been. We ended up with the 5th pick again. So at that stage, that's when things started kind of rolling into place. And what's helped too a little bit is that the city of Detroit's really thriving as a city right now. It's really growing. So a lot of people are like back invested into our sports teams a lot. As you guys know, off top of it, the Detroit Lions have been such a incredible story for the city itself, helping the growth, the rebuild. Like Dan Campbell, he's our kind of guy. And that's the thing that the city of Detroit embodies. It's like we need those kind of gritty, grimy kind of guys that people don't really buy into if they were elsewhere in bigger markets. Cade Cunningham is that perfect guy for that city. He's kind of that do-it-all, kind of does all the dirty work on the side that not many people want to do, and he just wants to win. And that's what that city needs. So I've experienced a lot of ups and I've experienced a lot of downs as a Pistons fan, but it is super exciting. But I will say, outside of the Chauncey trade, there was one other trade that happened during this little prime run we had in the mid-2000s, and it was Danny Ainge doing his magic per usual. He decided to make a trade for 2 individuals, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett. It was never the same. We knew at that point we can't beat the Heat. We can't beat the Celtics. Then the Miami Heat trade for Shaq. Dwayne Wade's in his prime. That's when we knew it's the time is over. So that's my my little spiel on the Pistons. But I'm super excited to see where they are. We're not Celtics level yet. Maybe we'll get there one day. But again, the tough part with the Pistons is it's not like Boston. It's such a luxurious market that you guys can pluck free agents and get whoever you want. Like you guys had the sweepstakes for Kevin Durant. Pistons fans, we don't get that luxury. Not many people want to come to Detroit. I think it gets a bad rap sometimes for what it is, but very often I get asked when I first moved out here, they're like, hey, so have you ever been to 8 Mile? Is it really that bad? It's not a bad city at all. Every city has its bad parts. But that's the tough part about a small market or mid-tier market like Detroit. We're never going to get the luxury of what the Celtics get of, hey, all the top free agent names, you guys have a chance every year. We don't have that. We either have to get the right guys in the draft or we have to get the right guys in the trade and people that want to be at Detroit. So, the perspective of being a Pistons fan growing up and then, being out here for my 9th year and just watching the Celtics and being a Brad Stevens guy, it's made it really easy for me to kind of like fall in love with the Celtics and seeing what they're able to do and accomplish there. But again, like obviously we'll talk a bit about more of the Celtics here, but biggest thing with the Pistons is that I'm still going to love my Pistons no matter what the circumstances are, but times are exciting right now knowing that we could be in the playoffs. We could win our first playoff series, I think, since like 2007, 2008. So business is booming right now.
Detroit's up right now. Yeah, Detroit's up.
So we're running out of time, but thank you guys again so much. We'll definitely have to do another one of this, but I really appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you so much. Make sure to like and subscribe. And again, we're with Celtics Talk Weekly. So we got Seamus on here. And thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.